everybody. Welcome to the Tortured Man, Mancast, episode 21. Tucker and Tate, the most watched interview in history, which it absolutely is. It is on fire right now. It is dominating the internet and the conversation that they had. And first word, it goes to my brother Chad. So, Chad, what say you?
Yeah, I think it's at like 92.5 million views on Twitter already now. And it's huge. I mean, it's being covered by so many different YouTube channels. I just saw the Masterclass channel has 2.9 million views already. It's a long interview and people are watching it. He's an interesting man. He's captured the media right now, and it doesn't matter. It isn't just people on the right, people who are more independent. It's people on the left are talking about him too, and he's the biggest story in town right now. So that's what we cover. We cover the news and the culture, and hopefully soon sports. Can't wait for football to be here and we can stop talking about some of this shit for a while. But at the same time, it's important to cover this stuff. That it's what's being covered everywhere. So let's go ahead and talk about it. With that, one of our first takes on this that you and I both had and that we both shared before we even had any criticism of any of it was just that it felt a little like weird the way Tucker almost was like a giddy fanboy.
Yeah, it was
in the relationship between them.
Little more high-pitched squealy Tucker than I like, to be honest. And he let Tate dominate that interview.
He did, and that part was a little bit awkward, but at the same time, it was still a really interesting interview and a really compelling interview, and it made me think, well, holy shit, I guess maybe Tate's been telling the truth here. Maybe this is a setup. Maybe he is getting screwed here, and that doesn't surprise me. The way people get screwed, if you speak out of line and you push against the narrative they want you to portray, that they don't mind squashing you like a bug. He's not too big to squash.
I agree. And
Andrew, I just thought, well, maybe I lent credence to what he was saying. Go ahead.
Well, I think that just Andrew Tate is a compelling person. He's like the Dallas Cowboys or the Oakland Raiders. You either love him or can hate him, right? There's not a whole lot of in between with a character like this. But he is very compelling. And regardless of what some of these accusations against him, even if some of those turn out to be true, doesn't change the fact that what he is preaching is correct. I mean, you can have the apple and the orange at the same time, right? I mean, he can be a man of low moral character and have done some dastardly things and still be correct about the current conditions of the world, and particularly men in the world, and how Western society's redefining of what a man is actually hurting all humans across the planet. Those things, at least to my mind, are in fact all partially or all true, right? And just because he may have done this bad thing over here doesn't change the fact that he's telling the truth over here. So it makes it he's a very complex guy. And I think what most people don't like to admit about him is he's extraordinarily smart. And he's very manipulative. So you never quite know when he's manipulating you or when he's giving you the truth, which makes it more fun, actually, as somebody on the outside trying to figure out what the hell's going on.
All right. So for folks in our audience who may not be familiar with Tate, let's just catch you up real quick, briefly.
Fair enough.
He was a kind of a prodigy when he was a kid. His father was a grandmaster at chess and would just beat him from the kitchen cooking dinner. Didn't even have to look at the board, could just spout out, C9, whatever, and then he would get beat from another room. But this is how Andrew learned how to be a killer player. And I think at the age of 12 or something, he was a little kid when he won. He went to the state of Indiana's tournament for chess and beat out like a 60-year-old man.
Yeah, I think he was 11.
Okay. Yeah. So impressive. just obviously an intelligent kid, if you can do that at that age and you can beat out people who've been playing it all their lives for so much longer than you. So bright guys. Father was obviously very bright. His father was in the military. Father was a black guy, so Andrew Tate is actually half black. So the idea that he's like this white supremacist is
His
hilarious.
mother, by the way, is she's an English woman.
Right. So he lived in Britain a lot. And one thing that I wasn't aware of about him, I knew he did some OnlyFans. I knew he had like girls on cams. But after the Tucker thing, I was like, well, this guy seems like he's been a maligned person. Like, and I don't think it's fair what people have said about him. Well, then somebody recently came out with a video you and I both have seen, and it's like a montage of him saying awful shit, like really awful shit. And there's only two things that could be true about this stuff that he says. So, for instance, he says stuff like, I make girls fall in love with me so that they'll come be with me. As soon as I have sex with them, then I convince them to get on webcam so that I can exploit them, and I make a shit ton of money on it. I take half the money from the OnlyFans itself, and then at certain points he gets guys to think that they're going to be with these girls, and they will like mortgage their houses and like go broke sending money to these girls in under the illusion that they're going to end up being with these girls when there was never any of that going
He
to
even came
happen.
up with an
And so he's
acronym
basically
for pimp.
defrauding.
Came up with an acronym for pimp to justify what he was doing.
Yeah, like positively some inspiring
Right.
motivational
It
person.
was horse shit. It's what it was.
And then he started this thing called Hustler University, where he was getting young men to send him money to teach them how to like pimp these girls. And but there was also classes of supposedly about stock trading and and this and that, about diet and exercise, and it's sort of this all thing. But he had one class called a PhD, and that's your pimp and hose degree, right? So there's only two things that can be correct about a guy who's saying stuff like that. Either one, he's a giant douchebag. You know what I'm saying? And that would have been for me. I would have never sent the man my money because he's saying really douchey shit. But two, which is more likely the case, he's a fucking psychopath who knows how to manipulate people in every aspect, not just the girls, but the guys on the other end of the camera as well, right? As all the little minions he's now pulled into his cult, all the 130,000 people that subscribe, that pay him a monthly fee, that bring in ungodly amounts of money, and then this compound full of people that he's basically created. I found out today now that he actually has a penchant for, he kind of like speaks glowingly about cult leaders. He has a shirt that says something about Coney for president because he thinks that Joseph Coney is worth lauding, apparently a warlord who kidnaps little girls. So the guy he's whacked out, man, and I think he's just, I think he's on the psychopathy spectrum to a high level, and I don't think he feels empathy the way a normal human being would. But he is incredibly emotionally intelligent, and he knows exactly how to manipulate people and play against whatever their vulnerabilities are.
That's my take. Is he's a master manipulator. On a psychopathy scale, I would flat out say he's probably a psychopath. Psychopaths rarely have empathy for anything, but they're also always, or mostly always, highly intelligent individuals, and he's learned how to mirror and study and learn how to pretend that he has the emotions that you need to see. And that's where the manipulation comes in. He's so adept at doing it. You could see it when he did the interview with Tucker. There was a lot of manipulation going on in that interview. And it's so subtle, and he's so good at it. It should be said, though, too, that he is now claiming that the OnlyFans thing is long gone. He hasn't done that for some years now. I think he claims 5 or so. Whether that's true or not, I honestly don't know. Do I think that he's dangerous? I don't know. Anybody like that is potentially extraordinarily dangerous. And normally we call them politicians, but in this particular case, he's smarter than they are. So to me, the real intriguing thing about him, as I alluded to earlier, is this whole thing that's going on with the apparatus, the mainstream media who hates him, and particularly the Romanian government right now who is after him. Is he playing chess and they're playing checkers? Like, was he anticipating all this? And they're going to all eat shit. I wouldn't be surprised. This guy has pulled himself out of the ringer before, so it's very interesting how this whole thing is going right now. The most interesting thing to me, however, is, or that I find really, I want to say disappointed, but I thought Tucker handled the interview. He could have demanded more answers. He let him off the hook a lot and let him, I'll give Tate this. For him to, off the cuff, just sitting in a chair, not knowing what's coming his way, be able to riff the way he does for as long as he does without a break, that is not easy to do. That guy's mind is together. Whether it's a dangerous mind or not, I'm not sure yet. But man, he has really got his shit together. And he is getting, on a worldwide audience, he is making his case of his innocence better currently than they're making the case against him.
So the rewind real fast about the psychopathy thing, just briefly, because this was kind of my jam in grad school. The whole thing with, if you're a psychopath, well, let's just talk about empathy real fast. Two types of empathy. A regular person would have, would be on an average, top of the bell curve for both types. And that would be, your emotional IQ, and that's your ability to understand people's emotions. You see how their face changes when you say something, and you completely like, oh, okay, I think I've said something incorrect here, that's upset them or that's made them happy, and so I should say more of that. So you're really adept at understanding people's emotions. That's your emotional IQ. The other part of empathy, it's required to in order to have empathy, the actual definition, you have to have what's called the emotional contagion. And that means you not only recognize the feeling that somebody has, but you feel a bit of it yourself. It's the thing when you watch somebody, get hurt and you're like, oh, you see somebody stub your toe and you're like, oh, that hurts you. But, or worse, you see somebody lose a family member and you cry too, like that's the other side that's required. And that's what people like Tate, I don't think, have. That's what full-blown like psychopaths don't have. They don't have the ability to feel it. They have the ability to see it usually. And it's interesting because people who are on really high on the autism spectrum, they're like the exact opposite. They could, if you could get them to feel it, they would feel it on a level much higher than the average person because they have that emotional contagion, but their inabilities are at identifying the emotions. Their emotional intelligence is really low, which is a really weird juxtaposition. But back to the psychopaths, I tend to think that someone like Tate, high level surgeons, high level attorneys, a lot of these really high functioning people are actually really high on the psychopathy spectrum. You don't have to use your powers for bad. We've seen Tate use them for bad. That's all I'm going to say. And what happened 5 years ago? What happened that changed? Was it because he was going into this casino route? So he found a different, game that he was going to play. But I don't think there was ever some epiphany. I don't think there was a, come to Jesus moment where he thought, right, well, I'm going to clean up my act.
So if I was going to take a guess at that, he obviously, when he moved away from that and the casino gig that you're talking about, there's no ambiguity there. I think he found a better way to turn a profit, make money, and it needed more of his attention. So he moved from one to the one that he thought was more profitable, which it probably was. And that's why he did that. It also probably didn't put him in a position, loose lips sink ships, right? So the people that he got into bed with in the casino thing were never going to rat anything out. The only thing he had to worry was if he fucked them over, they would kill him, right? Taking advantage of the girls, if any of them get out there or if any of them ever got to get away or go interview, if in fact they were being held, that's more of a liability than working with Russian mobsters and Romanian mobsters, right? And running this casino scam thing that he set up with them, because the only way that anything was going to go sideways there was the police were never going to get involved. They just kill his ass, right? And by the way,
Right.
speaking of being smart, the idea that he came up with them was fucking brilliant, and he made everybody fucking money, and he's rich as fuck now because of it. So I think he walked
Well,
away
it
from it
didn't.
because it
He
was just
would
a
have.
better play for his money. That's all.
I actually don't think the casino thing. It ended up not going through. It would have been insanely lucrative, and he would have. It would have been launching him into another stratosphere for sure. And the way he did it was genius, but I actually think it got shut down eventually because of COVID. But what had happened was, for our audience, Ed and I have talked about this already, but he he found this Romanian casino nearby that was making something like $18 million a week or a day or some astronomical amount of money. And he was like, light bulb, okay, that's the new game. That's a much higher level game. Let me get involved in that. Went to these guys, asked them how he could get involved. And they were like, who the hell are you? And why would we want to get involved with you? And he's like, well, because I can help you make money. And they're like, we don't need you, go away. He kept hounding him. Finally, he came up with this really brilliant idea. He bought the building next door to their biggest competitor casino. And he said, I'll pay for the building. I'll run the entire show. You have to put in no money, and I'll give you money on the back end, on the turnaround. So you get free money, and I'm taking money from your competitor. I just want to use your name. What say you? And he was like, yep, let's do it. That was a huge deal. And that would have definitely, been a rocket ship for him financially and, you know, everything. But you know as well as I do, there's no way that a Romanian casino isn't shady as fuck
Right.
too,
I mean,
bro.
obviously, they're super shady.
He wants.
So I just looked him up real quick. And
Mhm.
Andrew Tate's net worth is they don't know for a fact. They're guesstimating between
Yeah,
150 million and 250 million dollars. That's
yeah,
a
he's
lot of
rich.
goddamn money, man. Holy
That's
shit.
rich, man.
Um,
He's even richer than the Bidens, and he doesn't even know any oil or
right.
gas
And he
execs.
right.
Yeah,
And his children don't work for Burisma for $1 million a year for never showing up or knowing anything about, energy.
right.
So I just think he's a very compelling character. He's interesting to me.
Yeah.
If
Hmm.
Do I think he's dangerous? Potentially. Um, I don't mean on a
I don't
worldwide
think
thing. I think
so.
he could be dangerous to the people around him because I think he could probably suck their
Hmm.
emotions out of their fucking brains if he wanted to. Because the
Yes. Yeah.
the people that are around him, sans his brother, but the other people that are around him, and he has a large compound and a lot of followers, right? And he admits it and he likes
Hmm.
it that way. But those are
Hmm.
sycophants, right? They're cult members, for lack of a better
Yep.
term. Um, they're
Yep.
his minions. And so is he doing harm to some of those people? Has he done harm to some of these women in the past? I have no doubt that he has. And I don't mean that he's beaten them up or anything like that. I would imagine it's funny. You've done way more study on this than I have, especially considering what you were doing at the university level, and going for your PhD in criminology. Um, but it just occurs to me that all the psychological readings that I've done and all the interviews that I've read with children who were either psychologically manipulated and tortured or physically manipulated and tortured, they'd rather be physically fucking smacked around than psychologically destroyed because it's worse.
Yeah.
And Tate knows that, and he knows how to bring people to their knees and beg him to take them back when they've done nothing wrong, right? And that's what cult leaders do. That's how they drive you harder and harder to give more and more of yourself to them. But I think it's pretty clear that he's definitely a, a psychopath or damn near close to one.
So I'll just say this: for me, the jury's still out, but I'm leaning towards more of a villain than than a good guy. But I don't know for
Right.
sure,
That's what
and
makes it so
and I know
interesting,
that
right?
and I know the media and the bias and the way people can spin and the way the internet can cancel and try to completely screw you over, make you look bad. And the way he's saying that these current Romanian charges are from 2021, so completely disconnected by at least 3 years from the OnlyFans sex stuff, sounds plausible. And so therefore they're not, it's not the sex trafficking we think we have, right?
Because
So,
I mean, even in that video that you had sent to me, because he's very proud of it. Hey, look, here's the CCTV footage that I have at all my places. Everybody's free to come and go as they want. Nobody, and that's the trickery and the manipulation of it. Those people, if they are in a cult and they are under his complete manipulation, they would be free to go wherever they want because they're always going to come back. He's got nothing to worry about. Like Jim Jones never shackled anybody anywhere because he didn't have to. Just because you're saying people are free to come and go, but just because you don't shackle them down doesn't mean in their mind they think they're free to come and go, right? So it proves nothing other than
just because you
right.
Just because you finally let them go,
right.
you prove that
you're not just because we see a gate open and people coming and going as they please doesn't mean they're free to come and go. That's manipulation, and that's what he's doing, and that concerns me because that's exactly what he's doing. He's trying to manipulate people who are watching the videos that he's putting out. He's also very smart and clever the way he does things. Especially how he praises at the beginning of that video, Tucker Carlson, calling him such a great man and all that kind of stuff, right? Because he wants to be on the side of people who have a large following and have a lot of respect because he wants that to rub onto him, right? He's clever. He's a clever motherfucker. I'll give him that.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed he is. Speaking of the other side of this interview, an outstandingly clever, ridiculously clever and witty gentleman named Tucker Carlson. What I wanted to find before this episode was a way to get like the AI chat GPT or whatever to do a Mike Pence voice going, you sunk my battleship.
He destroyed that clown over the weekend. Oh my God.
He nuked him from orbit, dude. Just absolutely just dominated him.
Oh. I don't think there's another human on earth with more disdain for politicians than Tucker Carlson.
And that's why I love him.
He loves blowing these clowns up. In front of their,
I'm here for it.
The best part of this is he did this in front of Pence's own audience, right? Like this.
Yeah.
It's crazy. These people, this is an RNC event, right? This is why this is even happening. And he clowned that chump. Oh my God. And Pence was so dumb. He didn't even know he was just clowned. What an idiot. He's gone. He's over. It's done. He might as well just drop out now. Don't even waste your time. And by the way, Chris Christie, you fat ass, you're next. He's coming for you next, bro.
Oh yeah, it's on. It's on because Chris Christie he just stuck his freaking foot in his mouth recently too. But I like this one. Dave Smith, the comedian and the Libertarian candidate, he says, while the entire MAGA world is rightfully celebrating Tucker Carlson ending the political career of Mike Pence, you guys should really give some thought to the fact that this was the guy, the man Trump picked for his VP.
So this is, I know that Trump has said that he wants to talk when it comes to the RNC debates, that he wants Tucker as one of the moderators. I don't know that's such a good idea for Trump to have Tucker Carlson as a moderator. Because when Trump becomes Trump and he starts spitting nothing but words out of his fucking mouth, Tucker's going to hold his ass to task hard. And he better, just being Trump's not going to be good enough. Thank God.
Yeah.
Right? I hope, because Tucker has no great love for Trump. The only reason that he has leaned more towards the Trump side is because he's seen just how god awful the Bidens are in comparison. But previous to that, he had.
Well, it isn't even that. It's it's the way Trump's been treated, and all the fake plots against him and
Well,
all
well,
that
well,
stuff. I
I
think
think
that's
I think even moderate Democrats are now tired of that crap too. I think the whole country's just tired of it. Just it's
yeah.
especially because they're overplaying their hand. Because even if you're right this time, you've been everything you've done previous to it was the boy who cries wolf. Eventually the wolf may show up, but by that point, who gives a shit? Because you lied about everything for literally from 2015 until, let's say, the last one's real. So for 8 years, you lied through your teeth, knowingly everything that you were saying about him. And now we're supposed to believe you all of a sudden? That's not how it works.
Yeah, so back to Pence real quick. I I thought something that was also really a great point by Tucker was, and I believe it was from the speech he gave the next day. So, if anybody's confused, they did a big event held by the Blaze over the weekend where they had four, I think, of the presidential candidates on the Republican side: Mike Pence, Asa Hutchinson, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis were all there. Trump was not. Asa Hutchinson said some ridiculous shit too, but the biggest blunder was certainly by Mike Pence. Basically, just going on and on and on about the Ukraine war and how much more we need to send. And Tucker was finally just had enough and was just like, what are you talking about? Have you seen any of the cities in America? They're all falling apart. They're all in shambles. And all you can talk about is sending more weapons to Ukraine. Like, this is insane.
Right.
And it completely destroyed Pence. But what I thought was even better was what he said the next day. I think it was the Turning Point conference or somewhere like that. Tucker was giving a speech and he was talking about how he destroyed, just wrecked him. But he said, for me, the biggest thing is here's a guy talking about sending more cluster munitions to Ukraine. These awful things that we've decided we weren't going to use anymore. And this is supposed to be the Christian authority, the religious leader, of the Republican Party, essentially. Mike Pence, this Mr. Godly man, and all he could talk about is sending more bombs and tanks, to the war, and not how we're going to stop the war.
Well,
That's the most disgusting part
Tucker
to
took
me.
him to task directly, saying with all the problems that America has, that's what you're worried about. And then he doubled down and said, "That's exactly what I'm worried about." It's like, the hell, he's a war hawk, like all of them. That it would be
Yeah.
interesting to see, and some of this information can be very difficult to find. But Sammy, who used to work for me, and what his dad does for a living, I'd love to reach out to Dan and go, is this guy on a bunch of these boards where we're building bombs and munitions and stuff like that? I'll bet he is.
It wouldn't even, I think it's even simpler than that. I think it's simply the fact that he's an old school conservative neocon, and that's the way the game has always been played in Washington. If you want the money from the defense industry that's going to run your pack and actually get you into the presidency, you're going to have to stroke their dicks and say what they want to say. And what he's not understanding is that Trump changed that whole game. That, yeah, okay, you're going to have more trouble, I did, from the deep state if you don't toe the line. But at the same time, voters don't want to hear that shit anymore. Republican voters are done. They're tired of the wars. We're tired of all that shit. So, it's not just guys like me and you that are independents or libertarians. It's a fucking majority of the country, even on the left, are tired of these wars.
Oh yeah,
The only
absolutely.
reason they tolerate it is because it's coming from their own side this time, and it's
So
frustrating.
I just pulled this up. I'll read this. This is Tucker Carlson said, "You are distressed that the Ukrainians don't have enough American tanks. Every city in the United States has become much worse over the past 3 years. Drive around. There is not one city that has gotten better in the United States, and it's quite visible. Our economy is degraded. The suicide rate has jumped. Public filth and disorder and crime have exponentially increased. And yet, your answer is that the Ukrainians, a country most people can't find on a map, who have received tens of billions of US tax dollars, don't have enough tanks? I think it's a fair question to ask. Where's the concern for the United States in that? Mike Pence, that's not my concern. He goes on to say, I've heard that routine from you, but that's not a concern. It's clown school stuff.
He's trying to say, and he does it really horribly, he's trying to say, no, Tucker, the war is not my only concern.
Right.
But it sounds awful.
It sounds awful. He does
really
go on to say, I think Joe Biden has weakened America at home and abroad. And as president of the United States, I would restore law and order in our cities. We're going to restore law and order in our cities, repeating himself, secure our border, get this economy moving. But those are just blah, 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 blah talking points that are full of shit. He wants to wage war. And they all seem to want to do that. There used to be a delineation line between right and left, at least when it came to war. And those days are long gone. You know, it's my favorite meme of all time with the hippie chick. Like, I hated bombings until Obama started bombing everyone. Right? It's like we had this.
He made it cool.
We had this shift where all of a sudden war was cool and nobody here cared, even the people who used to. And it's a strange dichotomy that then you have someone who's supposed to be considered this monster evil person. And Trump, who actually is the only president in my lifetime who walked us back out of conflicts that we were in all over the world and reduced our manpower and interest in some of these conflicts. And I mean, they wanted him to go to war with Iraq and or Iran, and he refused. No president in my lifetime refused to go to war anywhere except for him. And you don't have to like Trump because I sure as fuck don't. But when it comes to waging war,
one did.
What's that?
One did, and they fucking blew his head off.
That's right. Yeah, they killed him for it. Right? They killed him. His name was John F. Kennedy.
So what they do to Trump? They just impeached him twice, and then released the virus, and then they finally got his ass out after January 6th.
I also think like John F. Kennedy died. John F. Kennedy died in office. Obviously, he was assassinated. So he became a martyr afterwards. But before that, he only had like a 32% approval rating. Nobody liked him, right? Because everybody wanted him to go to war. And he said, no thanks, not interested. And it pissed a lot of people off, particularly the CIA and the industrial military complex.
And then his brother fought the war further, fought Vietnam further, and they killed his ass too.
So here's the thing that'll really make people's heads explode. John F. Kennedy has far, far, far more in common with Donald Trump than he does Obama or Joe Biden.
It's true.
It is a true story. I don't care if you like it or not. Crazy. It's fact.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna like to hear that if they consider themselves a Dem. Now, me personally, I refuse to join a cult. So the Republicans, and I call them Republicans and demon rats, and they can both go to hell. I don't need either one of them. And I wish more people would accept our philosophy that the only right way is the right way. That's all.
Well, yeah. And if we could ever stop voting against people, start voting for somebody that inspires you instead of just doing what we always do, which is, we have two bad choices. Which one do I hold my nose for?
Right. Well, and that's that whole thing, the lesser of two evils still leaves you with evil. How is that a choice, right? Or somebody telling me when I don't vote that I wasted my vote or I voted for the other person. What? There's 3 buckets at the end of the hallway, right? One has a D on it, one has an R, and one's empty. And I got a cup of water. If I walk down and throw it into the bucket that has nothing marked on it, I didn't affect the D or the R at all. Leave me out of your nonsense.
But you could have put it in my bucket, damn it.
Right.
So therefore,
my point
throw your vote away.
But the point they try to make is that I might as well have voted for the other person. No, it doesn't work like that.
Oh, I know.
Right. But we need more people to come towards the center. And so we've talked about this the last few weeks. And it's for the first time in a really, really long time, I feel like that's what's starting to happen. They have way overplayed their hand. Even people who don't want to believe a lot of the stuff that we already knew to be true during the COVID or now see it. And it's starting to make changes, and it's becoming so ridiculous now um, that even mainstream media is taking things that are in the mainstream media and destroying it. We had a conversation off air about the idiot remarks that Whoopi Goldberg made about why it's completely feasible and totally correct for Joe Biden to never acknowledge that he has this other grandchild, right? And it's such a ridiculous thing to say. But after we had that conversation, I did a little looking into it. And she took a couple of days off because she got so roasted by the people who watch that show, who, by the way, are a bunch of furiously angry, feminist, fat fucking women in their 40s and 50s who hate men and just want to just have everybody else hate everything too, like all those cackling hens on that damn show. And even they were roasting her like, what? That no, you don't get to walk away from your grandchild. What is that, right? Oh, Whoopi just needs a couple of days off for personal time. No, go to hell. So, but that to my point, I think people are just really getting tired of this kind of nonsense, right? The Bidens have worn out their welcome, and I think that before the end of this year, I think the Bidens are going to be exposed, and I think their own party is going to do it to him so they can ensure that next year he cannot run for president.
Well, I don't know if you saw the latest. I saw Andrea Mitchell, of all people, of all completely biased, liberal reporters on NBC, saying now that the coke in the White House was found in a specific place where it's definitely not a public spot. It's a limited access place, right next to the Situation Room that only, a few people can get to. And so that really tightens the circle of who it could be. And it's accessed like right where the vice president parks. And so it'd probably be, maybe where the first son might park. And
Interesting. So,
and then I don't know if you've seen these videos that are circulating of him on that balcony watching fireworks.
Oh, he's so coked out of his mind, bro. Holy shit.
He's like, and you could see his stepmom like looking over her shoulder like, this motherfucker. Yeah.
Dude, not only does he have eyes as big as saucers, but he never blinks. He's like this the whole goddamn time. He's so
sweating,
he's tweaking so hard
profusely.
And now,
yes,
not that I'm proud of this, but I'm not exactly hard on myself about it either. But there was a day or two in my lifetime where getting totally tweaked out on coke was not out of the question. So I know the look when somebody's got it. And he was owning that shit right there. Holy hell, man. Yeah, he was out of his mind.
May have dabbled in it.
Did you hear the Dan Bongino?
May have dabbled in it. Certainly seen plenty of it.
Did you hear the Dan Bongino interview?
About how you couldn't get through the mag detection. I don't buy that.
So no, Dan Bongino had said what you had just said. He was in the Secret Service for 12 years. And while in his interview, he was polishing everybody's balls for a little while. What he did say was that where it was found near the Situation Room, no matter what, they're saying, and he said that he believes the Secret Service are sadly covering. He was begging them to stop covering for this. He said, because you're going to turn yourselves into the FBI. You're going to lose all the trust of the nation. You got to come forward. Somebody has to blow the whistle. But aside from that, what he was saying was that in that particular area in the West Wing, which especially on a weekend where there are no visitors allowed, that if you can, staff and everybody else, including the guys in the Secret Service, that may have been able to gain access to that area is less than 100 total people. And he said, and in that area, there is no way for anybody to get in or get out without being on camera. It is literally an impossibility. So he was saying they know who it is, and there's no two ways about it. Period. End of sentence. 100%. They know.
Yes. It's the most secure building on planet Earth. There's cameras everywhere.
And he also said what in our conversation that we had off air, he also said that there's no way in the world they can't lift prints off that bag. They absolutely did. There's
of course.
So they know it's Hunter. I mean, we all know it.
Of course.
What the hell?
Of course it's Hunter. And I thought, it could be all kinds of people. So originally the idea was like they couldn't get cocaine through security. I'm like, well, that's fucking ludicrous. A tiny little baggie, you can't stick it in your shoe, you know. Come on, dude. That's not that
But
hard.
even so, look. So another thing that I heard on another podcast was somebody who was not in the Secret Service but did high security kind of stuff, and their take was when you have a guy like Hunter Biden coming in and out, and you have a lot of the staff who come in and out every fucking day, you don't. No matter what anybody thinks, everybody is not being checked as close as you think because they're friends. They know each other. They see each other every day. So if somebody takes advantage of that, it's not out of the question. It's not like they're walking in through the metal detector and they're picking up a fucking pipe bomb or a gun, right? It's cocaine in a little fucking baggie. It doesn't set off a metal detector. They're not patting them down after that. You're good, go. I know you, Bob or Dan or whatever your fucking name is. So
That's my
right.
point. They just want to make sure you don't have any weapons.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, but just this idea, first off, that then on top of that, the White House, their press releases of what may or may not have occurred were complete fabrications from the beginning of this. Just totally. First, they said the Bidens weren't even there, and this was in the East Wing. No, it wasn't. It was in the West Wing, and the Bidens were there. So they were just making this shit up as they went along because they were trying to downplay it. What I can't figure out is, well, I can figure out, how did this get released to begin with? They cover up for Biden so much that something as innocuous as this and as easy as it would have been to keep quiet got leaked because somebody in the DNC wanted it leaked, and that's how that happened.
Bingo.
They can hide a laptop for 5 years. They can hide a little bag of cocaine for as long as they goddamn well want. And it didn't even stay out of the limelight for 24 hours.
Can I tell you about the newest racist in America?
Who would that be?
There's a new culprit right now that is really pushing racial inequality, and that culprit is sleep. New article from the Atlantic in the health section. The racial inequality of sleep.
Oh
my. Black Americans aren't sleeping as well as whites. Here's why that's a public health problem and what can be done to fix it, by Brian Resnick. What a piece of shit.
What the fuck? What? Sleep is racist? What the fuck?
I always knew that about you, sleep.
Oh my God.
You just wait. I'm going to fight sleep all night tonight.
We are so doomed. I was watching a podcast. I can't remember the guy's name. He's a black guy. And so he was showing a clip of some woman who was ranting about how the directories for people's telephone numbers on the internet are racist. And he's losing his damn mind, right? So and his point is we can't get away from it. Every single thing in the world is now racist, and because it's all they have, because they have no argument other than you're racist, right?
Well, the climate's racist too.
Yeah, of course.
You know.
Hey, look, I listened to Pete Buttigieg tell me how on ramps were racist as well, and off ramps for highway systems, they're racist too.
Of course. Ilhan Omar recently tweeted that the Earth just broke the record for the hottest day in 12,000 years. In fact, we broke it on 3 separate days. National climate emergency now. So I'd like to say a little something about this bullshit thing that's going around right now. First of all, to act like you know what the world was over 120,000 years, like you understand the weather patterns of 120,000 years when we're like a fucking snail fart, in comparison to that. So that's ridiculous.
Well, first of all, she's just lying
as
about
far as
that.
how long we've been measuring this. But second of all, they have been saying all over the news about today is a record global hot day. Like the aggregate of all of the temperatures around the globe put together is average hotter than ever before, is what they
Right. That's their
claim.
claim.
But the problem is in almost all over the world, especially, developing nations, but even, the US is very notorious for this, where you have the most thermometers, where they're reading them and they're like actually putting that data into their studies and the research they're gathering, the data they're gathering. Those inputs are coming from cities, and cities are naturally hotter than rural areas because they have less green spaces, they have more asphalt, they have more fucking cars noodling around, they have, it just all kinds of
Oh,
shit, less wind.
add,
They're
add,
naturally going to be
add
hotter.
in all the steam vents that run underneath that create a lot of heat at the street level, the
Yes.
magnification of the sun bouncing off the windows on skyscrapers.
The lack of breeze, there's
Right.
just so much that causes the temperature to
And by
go
the way,
higher.
and when they
So
break that record, they're not breaking the record. So the old record was it's like 62 point something degrees, but it's like 62.98144, and now it's 62.98145, and they're like, oh my god, it went up a thousandth of a degree. We're all gonna die. Shove it up your ass.
right.
Plus, we've only been
Yes.
tracking this shit for 130 years. That's it.
That's my first. That was my very first point. Is like, I mean, we've been looking at it for this long, and you're like, we're looking at 120 years, and you want to talk about 120,000.
Right.
You're out of your mind.
And that there's no way to know what it was 120,000 years ago. The only thing that we can tell
They can.
from core samples, especially ice samples, because they capture the atmosphere better. The only thing that we can tell is how much CO2 was in the air during certain eras, and we can take guesses at temperature, but we don't know for sure.
Yeah, they have some, decent estimates. I think where they're looking at it because they have, they can talk to you about the medieval warming
For sure.
period and
Again,
the little mini ice
we know, for
age.
instance, that the planet was uh, a giant tropical planet during the dinosaur era. I mean, we still had the capping, but generally, the guess
If
is the
you
temperature was probably closer to 7 degrees on average throughout the entire world, right? Which would be much higher than now. But they're not going to take that into their. They're not going to use anything that dissuades from what the point they're trying to get, which is we're in such an emergency that we're all going to die. And let's face it, for the last 100 years, that's what they've been saying. Whether it's going to be another ice age or whether we're all going to boil to death, it never ends with these people. There's nothing's going to happen. The Earth, you know what we have the capable. This is something that I've said for a very long time. We may have the capability to destroy ourselves, but we do not have the capability of destroying this planet. This planet will go on with or without us, and it doesn't really fucking care.
We'll destroy
Yeah.
ourselves, absolutely, and this planet will just mow
Yeah,
right over
just
that.
keep on going. Had dinosaurs on it for 300 million years, and then they went away and it started all over again. It didn't care.
If you look at the Younger Dryas theory, it's most likely that we actually got all wiped out like 10,000 years ago, that there was a civilization completely previous to that that had advanced technologies that we don't even know about or comprehend. That this has probably happened numerous times where a cataclysmic event has wiped out
Oh, yeah.
civilization and it's had to come
There's no
back.
two ways about it. We know it. As a matter of fact, they do some really cool models because now of all the radar scoping of the oceans that they've done, because we can see a lot of the things, of course, on land that you can't see in the ocean, and they've done such a good job with that now too. And if you've ever watched some of the scientific shows on the Discovery Channel, that kind of thing, when you strip away all the water from the planet and you can see, we look like the moon, dude. I mean, we have been hammered with that, with cataclysmic asteroids that ended life or altered life as we know it on this planet more times than they even can account for. And so we are just humans are nothing but a flea on a dog's ass in the big picture. That's it. We're nothing special here. And this, while we think we're special, eventually we're going to go extinct too, and something else is going to show up.
Yeah, maybe it'll be the aliens.
I mean, the best that we
So,
can get surmise right now is uh, humans, and not even in our own form, but what become humans, been around for maybe a million years. And really, in the life of the earth, it's like a second. It means nothing. So it'll be interesting. I mean, our lives are so short that no human ever sees any great, just out mind blowing thing in their life that they can't ever, you know, anticipate happening. Um, you'd have to be around for thousands of years for something like that. And who the hell wants to live that long?
yeah, really. Well, there's a lot of people that do like those weird elitists that are like drinking kids' blood and stuff. Uh, yeah. They I just saw this thing. I was thinking about all the speaking of the weird people drinking kids' blood and doing all the weird shit with kids. That Jamie Dimon was such an integral part of the Jeffrey Epstein, money laundering, washing the money through his bank and everything like that. And he's so heavily connected to the CIA and to operations where they used airlines he owned or was connected to move shit for the CIA, weapons, stuff like that, the Iran Contras, so forth, Ollie North, so forth. And I also found out recently that probably one of the worst social media sites for the government controlling the narrative, for government spying on you, taking your details, your data, and then leaking that data to people who can harm you is LinkedIn. That LinkedIn is essentially like a CIA trap, a government, like controlled, spot. And I just saw this breaking news here that LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman, actually, it's been discovered that he went to Jeffrey Epstein's island after he was convicted of child prostitution. And he also just became one of the largest donors to Joe Biden's
Yeah,
campaign in
shocking.
2020.
So shocked by that. Did you see the new video out about Biden? It's recent with a little 4-year-old girl.
Is
The
it
one where he's
one of the
behind her
ones where
and he's
yeah,
sniffing and licking and kissing at her neck, and she is
his
desperate to get away from him.
his usual
He
behavior,
is a
you
fucking
know,
freak, man. That guy is a
pedo
fucking
Peter,
freak.
pedo Peter, just like his son calls him.
That is, yeah. It is
So
so.
why do you think his son is leaving coke bags around and getting fucked up in the White House? Because he wants his
I'm
dad to
telling you
get
right now,
busted.
that is a very true statement. He is. It seems that his kids, Hunter more so than his sister, but her too, seem to go out of their way to try to destroy him, and the apparatus just won't let it happen. I
Yep.
mean, Hunter's like, look, man, I left the laptop with me with like a dozen fucking hookers, blaming everything on my dad, spilling out all the truth, and I couldn't make that work. So what could I do? I'm going to leave a bag of Coke in the fucking White House. That ought to do it.
Right next
Nope.
right next to the situation room, and I'm gonna be geeked the fuck out on camera.
Right.
Right after I just got convicted for tax evasion.
Right. And nope, that didn't do it either. I mean,
No,
it's we may be the dumbest people that ever lived because there this this family is
not
literally
me and you.
right now, but this family is literally coming out on a daily basis saying you people are fucking morons and we can do whatever we want to do. Fuck you. And everybody goes, yay, let's vote for them. It's sick as fuck. Drives me crazy, man.
Yes, indeed.
The idea, and I'll
Same.
say it again, the idea that the Democrats have become so fucking sycophantic that I like a guy like Trump makes my blood boil. Shame on you.
Agreed. Yeah. It isn't even that we like him, but we feel the need to defend him because it's like it's bullshit
It's
what's
so
being done to him.
this whole thing is such insanity. I don't. This is also why most Americans, in my estimation, just don't pay any attention to this shit because their heads would explode.
No.
They just don't care because they know there's nothing that they can do about it. And they're right. There's nothing they can do about it. We
Right.
can't do anything about it either other than talk about it and laugh at it. and we do a pretty good job of that part of it. But
This is our therapy right
this is
here,
good
catharsis.
Lord, man, it's just so creepy, the whole thing. But I'll stick with my prior statement. I think Biden's going down. I think they're setting him up for it right now because they're never going to let him run for president again. He can't. He's senile.
Yeah.
He just can't.
It was more footage over the weekend, him looking where to go, didn't know where to go. Other leaders always have to help him. He can't figure anything out, doesn't remember any of the customs. He's just completely just an empty skin bag, you know. And they know it. And then all of this sloppy, you know, crimes are, you know, spilling out constantly. They're absolutely ready to move on from Joe. And, you know, it's almost even scarier. It's like the devil, you know, right?
I was of the opinion, because this has escalated really fast here with the Bidens with more stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So previous to the last couple of months, I would have thought that Trump probably couldn't win a national election against Biden, but I think at this point he probably could. And I think that scares the shit out of them. But even more frightening is they're going to bring in a guy like Gavin Newsom, who will probably wipe the floor with Trump, simply based on nothing more than he's like Obama. First off, he's a New World Order guy 100% of the way. But more so than that, he really good at reading the teleprompter, and he's good looking.
Yep, he'll be slick and he'll be smooth, and he won't let Trump rattle him, and he'll kind of like just take the higher road and but still throw the jabs that he can, because Trump has plenty of things he can be jabbed for, and he'll try to look like the adult in the room, and it won't, obviously it'll work for the Democrats, and obviously it'll work for a lot of other people just because he's not Trump. The thing is, it obviously won't work for the MAGA folks because Trump is always going to be their guy. And it won't work for a bunch of conservatives and even, you know, independents and libertarians who pay attention, because we all know Newsom is a villain. But at the same time, he does have enough charisma and he is new enough to a bunch of other people, whereas Donald Trump is kind of old news now and a one-trick pony, doing the same stuff he did in 2016, you know, up there on the debate stage. It isn't going to carry the same weight that, you know, nobody'd seen that before, and it blew everybody's socks off. But it's not everybody knows who he is now, so
it's going to be interesting moving forward. But we are hard up against it, brother. Another fun show. Always love doing this with you. Couldn't imagine doing it with anybody else. Everybody out there, hit like and subscribe. Am I exactly, the Biden crime family. So I'll make a quick last word. I'm going to pay attention to this Andrew Tate thing, see where this goes. I'm going to watch Tucker Carlson destroy most of the opponents that are the players that are going to try to get nominated on either side of the aisle. And I hope Joe Biden burns in hell.
I definitely second that last part. I will be anxious to see how it all shakes out with the debates. I've heard Megyn Kelly said today that she believes, just the way Trump's been talking, she doesn't think he's going to at least show up to the first debate at Fox. So he may think he just got it locked up and doesn't feel like he has to, but I don't see how the man stays out of it. But anyway, that's probably a longer conversation for another day. But I'm just really anxious, nervously anxious to see how all this shakes out. But as it comes down the pike, we'll be talking to you about it and sharing our thoughts and distilling it with you. And we hope that if you have any thoughts about it yourselves, you can jump in the comments and leave us one. We'd like to mix it up over there. Also, jump on Twitter if you get an opportunity. Please check us out on Twitter, Ed and Chad Man, Tortured Man Podcast, and drop us some comments on there. That'll help us out. So with that, everybody, thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you again next week.
Peace out.